A set of new polls have come out today with good information for a few different candidates. It tends to be good for a particular one, but even Joe Biden over there has got some good news. So why don't we run through a few of these and we see what we can learn about South Carolina, but perhaps far more importantly, Super Tuesday. How are things shaping up for a day that is going to determine a ton of the delegates needed to become the nominee? So in Texas right now, new polls shows that Bernie Sanders holds 29% support among likely primary voters. Joe Biden is at 20, Mike Bloomberg at 18, and Senator Elizabeth Warren at 15. So right now in Texas, the second largest in terms of delegates, Bernie Sanders has a 9-point lead.
Oh, buddy.
Is that the excitement?
Oh, maybe.
For which state? All of them?
In general, specifically here for Texas. By the way, to put it in perspective and see if we can get another oh baby. Sanders is up 14 points, Bloomberg up 13 in that same poll since it was done in December. Since then, Biden has dropped 15 points in Texas and Warren has stayed roughly even.
So for the first part of that, I got a woohoo. The second part of,
But it's up 13 from what? Think about where you started.
Five.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, still really exciting.
So look, that's Texas, but far larger even is California. In California, Bernie Sanders in this new poll is at 35%. Elizabeth Warren is at 14%, Biden at 13, Bloomberg at 12. That is a big gap between Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. More than 20 points in a state that holds more than 400 delegates.
So this will show whoever really has the motivation, because John knows how I feel about polls.
You're excited by them? Ooh, buddy.
Yeah. So if you're a Biden supporter, if you're a Bloomberg supporter, if you're a Warren supporter, and you're in, say, California, it looks like it's insurmountable, do you just not come out now?
Yes, no, but that's.
So everyone should participate.
No, but I just mean, we had this discussion really on the show the other day. Like, this does affect people. People feel deflated if the candidate that they prefer is not doing well. I don't think complacency is as big of a factor when you see these polls as is the general malaise that comes with a candidate that is losing support in the state that you've been, say, organizing in or really supportive of that candidate in. But when I say organizing, Bernie Sanders has the best organizing team in the entire country, in the entire field, and that's the reason he's winning, because people have spread the word, knocked on doors, and he's put his money that he's raised not into private jets, not into Ritz-Carlton hotels, which articles said Biden had spent an inordinate amount of money on. No, he put it back into organizing and it's paying dividends.
Yeah. And I will say, just to jump in, some good news for Biden. I saw a couple of polls that came out today for South Carolina where he had a big advantage. So that was what he was gambling to have. It is possible that that gamble will pay off, at least in the short term, in South Carolina this weekend. I'm gonna jump ahead to the graph though, because this one poll has Bernie up in California by 21 points. It is possible that that is an outlier, but I do wanna let you know that this other poll has him up by, I think that's 17 points at that point. And so we are seeing this trend where, he has been shooting up over the past few months. So just bear that in mind. And it's not just in these two states. Now, Texas plus California, that is 600 plus delegates. You need 1,991. So that's a big percentage there. In Massachusetts, there's a new WBUR poll, shows Bernie Sanders is at 25%, Elizabeth Warren at 17, down 8 points in her home territory. And that means, it is not guaranteed, but it is possible that Elizabeth Warren will go through this process without placing first in any contest, including her own.
I think that's likely. I think that's more likely than it is not at this point, despite the fact that at one point she had surpassed Biden as the front runner for what seemed like a decade ago. But look, this is what happens when you bring on the wrong people to your campaign and you start just deviating from your initial strategy towards a unity strategy. You keep hitting your same messaging instead of whatever she's doing now.
Yeah, I wonder what it is, like where her support normally was in Massachusetts, how popular she was there then, because again, it's a home state thing.
And if it is about the policy, not that good there, which is,
just even from the beginning, it probably could have already been a little bit shaky in the first place. And then also, when you get the approach of wanting to pull back and then not continue with the things that got you where you were, it could be a problem. And also, East Coast there, Vermont's right there. It's like, it's kind of the same area. I get it's a different state.
But the Massachusetts, You guys know the California Democratic political machine, the New York political machine. They're both really big and almost like sub-countries in their own, like the way the Democratic Party behaves there. Massachusetts has a very similar kind of hierarchy-owned system there. It's a big, big state and a big operation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so one last thing I want to say, especially because as I said, I was looking at the South Carolina polls today and I saw that Elizabeth Warren there in the most recent one I saw is at either 6 or at 8%. And I'm just gonna say that a lot of people have been rightfully saying the first two contests were incredibly, overwhelmingly, shockingly white. Nevada, less so, but not a significant percentage of the population is African American. This is the first state where a huge part of the Democratic Party finally is apart. And so there's been all this pressure on Bernie Sanders. Will he perform there? And according to polls, he is doing much better in that community. But that same rule applies to everyone else. And Elizabeth Warren, her supporter base is very, very white, and she's not doing well in South Carolina. So if we're gonna have that standard for Bernie Sanders, and we should, because that community cannot be taken for granted in this election, we have to have it for the other candidates as well. And so if she's gonna do poorly in South Carolina, if looking ahead, she's doing good in California, admittedly, but bad in her own state and a lot of these other ones, really, what is she hanging around for? What miracle is going to happen that's going to radically change things? And so I will appeal to the senator as someone who does not oppose you as much as a lot of other people have grown to over the past few months. I'm like semi joking, but I'm keeping it real. You can drop out and endorse Bernie Sanders, and your chance of becoming president, I'm going to keep it real, does not change if you do that, because the number is 0. But you can salvage your reputation by helping Bernie Sanders avoid the horror of a contested convention. And here's the thing, I know what a lot of people are thinking. Yeah, she definitely doesn't think that she's gonna get the plurality, but she's sticking around to be chosen at a contested convention. I could be wrong, and I often am, but I think that's madness. Because if the Democratic Party pulls the trigger on stealing the nomination away from Bernie Sanders, why would they hand it to Elizabeth Warren? They like her better than Bernie, but not nearly as much as Joe Biden or Pete Buttigieg or Amy Klobuchar or Chris Coons or Sherrod Brown or Mike Bloomberg or any number of other people. And Elizabeth Warren at some point has to understand that. The strategy doesn't make any sense electorally and even in terms of her convention strategy. They're not gonna hand it to her.
Well, at this point, maybe, again, if she really believes that, which I don't think anyone should at this point, but Super Tuesday is one of those things that makes that realization come to mind. And also, hey, you have to also show how strong of a candidate you were. Maybe say you're looking for a vice president, a nomination or a head nod for that.
Yeah.
You want to show that you're a strong enough candidate and didn't just drop out. I mean, I don't know the circumstances behind Kamala's early drop. But I was thinking at first, I was like, oh, she wants to make sure she's not in it too long and still has this potential to not fight with other candidates to the degree that she maybe gets picked up for this position as a running mate. But it's almost so early that you forgot how that Kamala was in it in the first place, right? And then so maybe Elizabeth Warren is playing that other game. And again, I doubt that that's the thought process. Like, oh, okay, this is over. I don't think any campaign goes to that degree until they're actually about to step aside. But maybe that is a positive for her to go ahead and wait for a minute, a little longer, see what happens on Super Tuesday, and then become more of a viable running mate than you could be now. I don't know.
Maybe she'll do well in California.
She's gonna blow up. These polls mean nothing. She's gonna win all the states.
I think
anything's possible.
She could maybe stop the bleeding if she leaves out, if she drops out after Super Tuesday and endorses. We'll see.
Yeah. Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, Jayar. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.